If I could change one thing about HR, it's still kind of that stigma of, HR or a transactional function. We've come such a long way since then. I'm almost
Crazy.
like, like
Yeah.
really, it's like that needs to just die off now because we've earned kind of a reputation as strategic business partners who are, we're collectively responsible for the performance and invested in it. And something I hear a lot is just, you know a lot about the business for an HR leader.
Oh.
Or yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They mean it as a compliment, which is, so I'm not too hard on them.
Sure.
And you're like, really? You should expect that of all HR leaders.
Yeah.
And if there isn't a level of business acumen, then there's probably something wrong.
Hey Laila, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. How are things? First and foremost.
Things are good. Yeah, it's been a busy year. Looking forward to the holidays, recharging, kind of, spending time with family, but doing well. Thank you.
Amazing. Tell everyone a little bit more about your background and your journey to the role that you're in now.
Yeah, so I've been with Hiscox for almost 16 years in HR and financial services for around 20. I am, coming in, I'll start with this role, very much a generalist starting out, and it was a growing company, which was kind of fantastic for an HR professional because I got exposure to so many different facets. I mean, I was recruiting and I was working on employee relations issues and leadership development and all that rather than being pigeonholed, and progressed mainly through the kind of HR vertical, but became increasingly interested in employee engagement. So I led employee engagement globally for 7 years alongside my role. And then for about 3 years, I led the transformation of our global HR operating model.
Oh,
This is
nice.
when we were implementing a new HRIS, the one we have now, which acted as more of a catalyst for the transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and an opportunity for us to rethink the way we operated.
Did you feel like
So
you look back now and be like, why did I agree to do a HCM into
yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot.
I do, but that experience, I learned so
I
much.
bet.
I grew so much through that
I bet.
experience. It was like totally out of my comfort zone,
Yeah.
completely. But yeah, a lot of lessons that I took back with me. And then, now as the head of HR, really focused on mainly delivering business performance through talent. And
Amazing.
that's what I love. Yeah.
It's so rare in this day and age that someone you said how long did you say you've been there again?
Almost 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would you say is the number one reason that you stayed in the company for that long?
It's always had an opportunity to do something new and different and learn and grow.
Mm-hmm.
So just in that time, it was like, kind of I started out, I got exposure to so many different things that
Yeah.
I didn't have exposure to before. And then became interested in something, raised my hand, began leading it, HR transformation. And until this day, if this is, if I see something, if there's an opportunity to get involved, I can do that. And so I never felt the need to leave to grow professionally or
Yeah.
personally.
Did I want to delve into that? I mean, just you mentioned the word raise your hand,
Mm,
right? Many people don't do that in
mm.
their careers. Was there a certain point in your career that gave that a moment that gave you that confidence that you're like, hey, I'm not going to wait for someone to tap me on the shoulder, and I'm going to take charge of my career, put myself forward? Because there's actually been a lot of research even around that men do that more than females in
Hmm.
terms of putting themselves forward for roles.
That's
And there's been a
right.
lot of research around that. So I'm just wondering if that's something you've always done, it's been part of like your personality and how you operate, or a moment where you said, hey, actually no, I'm going to put myself in these uncomfortable positions, and I'm going to be intentional about that.
Yeah, to an extent, it's my personality just because I like to learn. And sometimes it wasn't for roles. So it wasn't just, kind of I saw a position that was a step up and so I was going to go for it, no matter what. It was just an opportunity to learn. So someone else was leading it, but I
Mm.
asked to be involved so that
Okay.
I could learn more about it. And then in partnering with them, then I kind of like naturally kind of learned and moved into that position as a result. And that's what I would encourage more of is just kind of like raising your hand to learn and grow for yourself and then seeing where that takes you.
Yeah. No, I was when you said that because it just triggered something in my mind, and that in my last company I mentioned to you beforehand, I was there for 10 years,
Yeah,
and I would early on in my career, I was just had that eagerness to learn and grow and develop, and I would ask like the marketing director, "Hey, can I come to your marketing meeting?" They're like, "You're a
right.
sales executive on the sales floor," and I was like, "Yeah, but I just want to understand, I just want to understand what you do and how we can work better together, right?" And they're like looking at me like I was crazy when I asked that
Yeah,
question, and I did the same thing for all of the different functions, and I remember at the time I got in trouble for it, actually by my manager, like, "How dare you go and do that without asking me?" And I was like, "Wait a minute, I was just wanted to." Curiosity. I had a curiosity mindset, and I was like, why wouldn't you ask that question? Uh,
exactly.
yeah,
It's one thing if it's like at the expense of your role,
yeah,
instead of
no,
doing
yeah,
the job you're
of
there to
course.
do, you're like involved in other things. But if it's on top of, then, it's certainly encourage it because that is, that's how I feel I've learned and grown the most. And I like to see people doing more of it because it impacts you at the end of the day. Like you're the one that's going to benefit most and
Mm,
take that with you. The company, of course, is going to benefit, but if you take that with you, you're still going to have it. So just do it.
yeah, it feels like fate. Then you landed in this job,
Mm,
considering one of your focuses and areas is to help upskill employees. Given that you enjoy doing that so much yourself,
mm.
with what you do, could you talk about some of the programs and work that you're doing at Hiscox to help upskill, reskill, and prepare your employees for this sort of VUCA world that we find ourselves in, that's constantly changing and evolving?
Yeah. So, firstly, there's the clarity of skills and looking at skills
Mm.
versus roles. So, what are the skills and how, what is transferable and taking more of kind of a skill-based approach to learning is one thing. Because, there was a time when it was like you are in this role, and so there was a development program specific to the role itself.
Yeah.
And, that's just not the case
No.
anymore. It really opens up the pool of talent, makes things easier. So that's one. The other thing is how people learn. So digital learning platforms like LinkedIn Learning, we love bite-sized learning chunks, broad range of topics, and easily accessible. So employees really kind of listen to it on the way to the office or in between a meeting, just making it really easy and relevant. And then thinking about just the role of our leaders and managers and the role that they play in role modeling some of what we want to see and kind of encouraging that growth mindset across their teams. So we've relaunched a leadership development framework and kind of redefined what it means to be a leader at our company because it does vary. You have those kind of like basics of what it means to be a leader and empowering others and articulating vision, all of that. But every company stands for something different. So there's also a personal kind of like aspect. What do you want? What's your brand and
Yeah.
how are you going to convey that and represent that through the leaders? Um, and, so I'd probably bucket it into those three:
Hmm.
the clarity, the access, and then the role of a leader and manager.
Yeah. The role of leader and managers changed so much, right?
Mm,
I would love to understand what you and the team have identified as some of the core competencies now that you identify as being key as a leader, as a manager. Because, when I was a manager, you wasn't talking about leading with empathy, right?
mm-hmm,
That wasn't a skill. Or the resilience piece we spoke about before. That's now,
mm-hmm.
so I'd love to understand some of the more of what you and the team are focusing on.
Yeah, so some of it is, it'll be things that you would have heard before in terms of being able to um, not just develop a clear strategy, but articulate a clear vision and a compelling one that brings others on board.
Yep.
Those are things that, or it's like, how you manage performance and so on. But and really taking more of an outside in view. So a customer focus, being focused on the customer and how you bring that into to the org. Other things in terms of like how it's transformed is around the resilience and the change.
Yeah.
So I think there was a point where, change was a scary thing. People think of it as a scary thing. You saw the change curve where, there was a grieving period and then how you, and it was,
Yeah, yeah. Like there was a beginning, middle, and end. Now it's just
exactly.
constant
It's
now.
constant.
Yeah.
Change is a constant.
Yeah.
So how do you lead people through change and help them, understand that it is a constant and
Yeah.
build that level of resilience so that, because you are just adaptable as an org, and the really focus on uh, investing in digital and the technologies and things like AI, that's going to accelerate that even further. So, the adaptability becomes even more important, and so does that growth mindset. So, things we were talking about before, it's that how you really embed it more broadly,
Mm.
and then how you represent it yourself. And it's kind of like we are a values driven culture, so there is a way in which we want people to kind of like role model our values and represent them as leaders. And it doesn't mean um, being uh, complacent or accepting mediocre performance or anything like that just because you're human centric or you're people focused. But it's more of the approach of how you do that and providing the clarity up front and holding people accountable and doing it with a level of respect and humanity
Yeah.
um, that we
It's
that we want to see.
it's hard to find that balance,
It is.
right? Because
It is.
if you go too far in one direction, there's an impact on performance and vice versa,
Mm-hmm.
right? To do that, and it's leaders, many leaders, including myself, are struggling to navigate that on both sides.
Yet many leaders find it extremely challenging. Like they could do the one end and they could do the other end, but
Mm.
the managing the performance and holding people accountable, almost feeling like your behavior has to change, where now you are, clear that you will not tolerate the performance and that comes across in a way that is unnatural and it doesn't, necessarily have to come across, as um, aggressively. It is reframing it. I think you care about people, you build a relationship, you develop that trust, you want what's best for them, and being clear about what the expectations are, providing the support and giving the feedback, being transparent and giving the feedback so they're not blindsided is the right thing to do. It is the human thing to do, and it is certainly best on both ends for people to know where they stand and to feel like they were treated with a level of respect and integrity from the moment they step in to the moment they step out, regardless of what the outcome is.
Yeah.
So it's that bit of reframing and then how you do it in an authentic way that we're trying to get across.
Yeah, because in the past, I've seen many leaders, even leaders I've been managed by, or even leaders in our own company, make the same mistake where they only they address the performance, and it's a kind of like an out of the blue conversation,
Exactly.
and the employee's like, what? We've been speaking every Monday for the last this, and now you're just throwing me into a performance review like out of
Mm-hmm.
nowhere because they were avoiding having the uncomfortable
That's it.
conversation, right? And you just immediately have just broken that trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
As well. So you not giving that feedback, you're taking away a gift from that employee by not giving that feedback, and also you're making your job harder because you're just building up this awkward moment that is impending and it is coming, and you're going to have that conversation. Whereas if you have that trust up front, and you
Mm-hmm.
set very clear expectations on both sides, and you can have that conversation, and
That's right.
it's not I'm not attacking you, it's not personal, it's and you can still do that in a very empathetic way, but still we focus on the outcomes
Mm-hmm.
as well. But again, that is a skill that
Mm-hmm.
when I became a manager, wasn't something you were taught. Like you were like
Mm-hmm.
you were Chris, you were a very high performing sales executive. Now you're a manager. Those are two completely different things. And I found it out the hard way. I was like, wait a minute, I'm no longer just responsible for me. I've got to
Mhm.
deal with everyone else, right? So we have to, how are you doing that? What are some of the ways? Is it internal coaching? Is it, like what have you found that what's worked best for you?
It is, and it is coaching, and it's getting to down to the basics, like how you set the clear expectations, how you have the regular discussions, how you open it up and provide the support. It's the how you develop the relationship, kind of like from the start. It's the so it is. It's more coaching, it's more framework, and it's practice. After that, it's it
Practice,
is then,
exactly.
and then it's practice because you can explain it away and people will understand it in theory, but it's not until they're in those situations that it truly comes to life. And then sometimes, it's kind of we're dealing with people. So it doesn't always go by the book. You learn from it and things go right and things go wrong and you kind of adapt and kind of flex your style and you apply it, the next time around. But it's only through that, kind of experimental learning that you'll truly kind of build those skills.
Yeah, reps.
Yeah.
We go put the
Mm-hmm.
reps in. You can watch
That's
as you
right.
said, you can watch as many videos as you want or read it. It's until you got to do it. It's a very different experience
Yeah.
to
Right.
be able to do that. Talking of the challenges of our leaders and employees, well-being, is a big
Mm.
challenge, right? Again, one of the conversations, again, we encourage our leaders to have conversations like, oh, Chris, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And again, they end up kind of avoiding the conversation because they won't do that. I'd love to understand how you and the team are providing support and customized well-being programs to your employees that really have an impact.
Yeah. So this is something that we put a lot of time and focus on. And that's number one is giving it the level of focus that it needs. So if it's kind of an ancillary thing, oh, it's kind of like we could care about your well-being, but there's nothing there to prove it, then, it's going to fall flat. Um, the next thing is, realizing that everyone is different. You are dealing with human beings, and wellness is broad. So mental well-being, financial well-being, emotional, social, physical, all of that, and that there are going to be some things that are more important to others depending on their life circumstances. So we look at it holistically and provide tools and resources around all of it, and make it accessible. The thing that, I'd probably boil it down to three things that we do. One is that we provide more education and kind of accessible um, tools to help people uh, build the kind of like awareness and techniques around it. So whether it's, kind of like training, resources, et cetera, that they can kind of, more understand how to live a healthy lifestyle or support their financial well-being. It's not just the resources, but it's more of the education, which is important. The second is that we do try to make it, kind of like fun and engaging. We do make a pointed effort also to make any learnings or the education or fun competitions and so on happen inside of the work day. So if we have a seminar or something like that, we encourage employees to do it. It's more signals that it is important to us
Yeah,
and that it's something that we want them to take advantage
and
of.
take time out for.
When it's not exactly,
Hmm.
and doing that inside of the workday is different than just
Yeah,
saying here it's on the side, kind of like grab it when you can. Um, and then the third thing is just really being conscious of what our people want and what they may need. So there's that kind of that external factor. We're looking at, okay, what's changing, what's around the corner, and it's kind of like what are the newest things that we should be considering in our overall offering. But also what's important to our people. What are they saying? What does our demographic look like and what do they care about? And asking them and then adapting, constantly evolving our offering based on that. So as an example, we had sabbaticals for employees after 10 years of service, right? Now we know that average tenure is less than that. And, that's kind of like that's the way of the world now, especially post pandemic. And so we offer a paid sabbatical after 5 years of service. And that is, it's a great value added differentiated benefit. And it also is a wonderful retention tool.
Yeah.
And that
Because that
is,
person
so
may
it's
just
kind of
need
like,
some time to reset, recharge, go and have
exactly,
that holiday or time out with the family they really needed to, or explore something, and yeah, then they'll boomerang right back.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I mean, and it signals that we care about that because we do care about that. And so, like, and that's where it goes back to, if as a culture you're saying you are people centric, you care about other people's well being, you kind of have to prove it. These are ways of evidencing that and
Yeah.
showcasing your commitment to their well being. And and then, just kind of like almost reinventing some of the traditional benefits like stock. We want people to feel a sense of ownership. All right, so like, what are some tools we could do that? um, that's something that is traditionally offered to senior level employees, right?
Hmm.
So we gave each employee stock in the company, at all levels, to ensure that they had a true kind of ownership in the success of the org, that there's, even more of a vested interest and even more of that feeling. And that is, that was kind of a bit different. So it
Yeah.
is something that's kind of been there traditionally forever, but kind of taking a different spin on it, if you will,
Yeah. No,
and considering like,
you gotta like, you gotta move beyond perks to actual,
yeah,
to actions, right?
to
Just
actions.
yeah, like you said, making time in the day, like during the workday, sends a very clear signal that we want you to prioritize this. Changing the
Hmm.
sabbatical time to be more realistic and up to date with the average, right? All of those things to start, like those are very clear signals that we're not just saying it, we're living it. You know?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you use as one of the big? Literally after this podcast, I have 1,000 global heads of well-being on a
Mm.
live event that we're doing with 6 global heads of well-being speaking and sharing some of the insights. And one of the questions we're going to talk about on that panel after we do this podcast, is what are some of the specific products and solutions that they're working with. So I'd love to understand, like, is this a program you've built internally? Are you working with like an external partner? Because it's a bit of a minefield for our audience. If there's so many different providers that are out there as well. So what is the main focus of, like, is there a particular one partner, or is it a combination of many that you're using in terms of your well-being programs?
It's a combination. It's a combination, and we pull it together. So we gain some external insights and, kind of do the studies, and it really leverage that more for the insights than for, to understand what is happening in the broader landscape.
Mm-hmm.
But and then the providers we're using there, it's kind of, it's multifaceted, because we found that, different providers have different specialisms and they're just great at different things, and we
Yeah.
want to offer the best. So it's kind of like the best of the different segments. So if you're taking a holistic approach, it's hard to find one that is just great at everything, and maybe there will be over time, but but it's not how we've structured it today.
Yeah.
And yeah, pretty good about kind of just benchmarking and ensuring that we have the insights that we need to
Mm-hmm.
kind of like know what other companies are doing and what we might be thinking about, and looking at our own demographic, and giving us ideas that maybe we haven't thought of.
Yeah. How have you made it accessible? Because one of the challenges, like many, I even had friends that I've spoken to that didn't even know their companies offered certain things, right? What have you done in terms of communication, or like making it easy for employees to access all of these resources and tools?
Yeah, the communication is such a big thing. And in HR in general, I don't know that we do a good job at promoting,
Yeah.
like really marketing and promoting what we do. There's so much that's done that really, if you could package it up and market it better, I think a lot of people would be just really floored by how much is already there. So that is, we do push out communications around that on a regular basis,
Yeah.
and again, package it up nicely. And that's made a really big difference. We also, uh, there's engagement and involvement. So when we have like, kind of like wellness competitions, things that employees can get involved in, and then we can, and I used to look at these things, to be perfectly honest, like, okay, this is a challenge, a sleep challenge, a hydration challenge. It's like, who's going to sign up for that? Is that a bit corny? No, it
Some
turns
people
out
love it, mate.
people love that. They
Shane, my
love it.
co-founder, he's all over it.
They love it.
He's part of like Strava, like the
Yeah.
running app, and he's like, I was like the winner on
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
and like I called
Yeah.
him last night and I was like, he was like, what's that noise? He's like, I'm out for a run. It's raining outside, and he was running because he wanted to be top of the leaderboard on there. So some people it really does work for
Yeah,
them.
yeah, and it creates such a buzz. And actually now, kind of like most companies are operating in a hybrid environment. So having these initiatives that bring people together and kind of everyone together is nice. It also helps from a social and engagement sense.
It creates the glue and
Um,
stickiness that
that's
you
it.
lose from being in person. A sense of community,
Hmm.
a sense of belonging. You interact with people that you wouldn't normally do so because they're not in your department or in your country even. So it creates something exciting for people to be part of.
That's
Uh,
right.
yeah, as well. I've got an interesting question for you that you're not going to expect.
Mm.
If
Oh.
we met again a year from now,
Mm.
what would we be celebrating?
What would we be celebrating? In general, I would say, I would love to say the embracing a lot of the AI, having the time that we value so much,
Mm-hmm.
being able to kind of like leverage some of these tools and technologies to make our lives easier. I'll look back and say, I remember when I used to spend so much time drafting these communications or like pulling
Yeah.
this. Like, I don't do that anymore. Now I get to do, now I get to spend it where I want. Just that transformation of the role. And we're seeing it come to life now. I think we're going to be I love to look back and say, yeah, never again, or
Yeah.
just yeah, completely different.
Yeah, I love that answer. That's such a good, that's a really good answer. You're right because the AI has the ability to free up so much time, right?
Mm.
So we can focus on on strategic work, time with our people in the
Yes.
organization, and just remove that. One of the simple ways that I've seen that happen recently is that typically when you have a one-to-one or a meeting, people are sitting there
Mm-hmm.
writing notes,
Mm-hmm.
and by simply removing that out of the room and having a note taker,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're present with that individual.
That's right.
I'm not looking down. I'm fully engaged in the
Mm-hmm.
conversation, and it's just been that's been a very different experience. So anyone listening, like if you're not already doing that, you need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Even I went to the doctor recently, and he did it, and because normally when you go to a doctor, it's like they're like sitting down writing the notes. They're not really like I don't feel like they're present with you. And he had a note
Mm-hmm.
taker on the desk, and I could see his phone taking all the notes. And I was like, oh wow, I feel like actually valued and present in the room as a patient,
Mm-hmm.
and,
Mm-hmm.
as well. So like you're right, like AI is going to give us. It's not going to replace. It's going to
Mm.
basically enable and empower us to be more present, more and spend time on what really matters as
Mm-hmm.
well. So I hope we are in that position a year from now. I think we already are moving towards it. It's just
Yes.
it's that's the entire reason why we built Atlas Copilot, our AI
Mm-hmm.
Copilot for HR leaders. Exactly because we were hearing that challenge that
Yeah.
you built as well. Um, with your network and your community, what are some of the stories that you keep hearing about the HR community that no one's really talking about publicly?
It's almost like it's known, but it's not known that there is not a right answer to almost anything that we do. And it's a lot of kind of like it's a lot of like best practices, and this is how you do it. And no one really talks about the fact that it varies completely. It's there's such an art behind what it's good to know these things and then really think about what is right for the organization that you're in or the time that you're in. And so, but it's just this. I think that there's a lot of it's kind of it sounds like we should do this, everyone should do this. When actually, I think we all know that that's never been true in our world, and I don't think, and it certainly isn't true today.
Yeah,
So it's a I wouldn't say it's a challenge. It's almost just a unspoken like a rule or something that we just all
yeah.
know, but for some reason don't share as much.
No, I love that. Like, there's this sort of this expectation that we have this best practice over here
Mm,
that works
mm,
really well for this company. That's just gonna you're gonna just apply to your culture with your cultural
yeah,
nuances,
yeah,
with your style of leadership, and all of a sudden it should just fit. like a glove.
No,
Doesn't work that way. You're right.
no.
You're right. 100%.
And it's yeah, I wish we'd be more open about that as a community to say this is what we've done. It works for this. It may not work for this. Kind of think about it. This is, kind of just the downside of these things
Yeah.
rather than present
That's
them as
one
kind of
of the
like perfect.
trends I see from top HR leaders that have world-class functions is that in the sense, in a way that they will
Hmm.
communicate to our employees to say, hey, we hear you. We're going to
Mm,
try this out and see how it goes.
mm,
Instead of this is what we're doing and it's 100% going to work. Because
hmm,
that's just not
hmm.
the truth. And people just really appreciate you speaking into that way, being like, okay. And oh, by the way, we tried it. It didn't work.
Yeah,
And
you
here's
have to.
why, and we're going to try that. Like, why not just do that? Like, we've had this sort of, like, people were very smart, and if you
Hmm.
communicate them like they're children, you're not going to get the engagement. Whereas if you're like, hey, we hear the feedback you gave us. This is what we cannot do. I know you all want this. We can't do that, but we're going to try.
Hmm.
We're going to do this. The response is amazing. So they're like, oh wow, okay, this is genuine. It's honest.
It's
There's
honest.
trust, right?
Exactly.
So I love that. Some companies, it's scary for companies to do that though, because they have
It
to
is.
admit that everything's not all roses and everything's perfect, and that's the bit that scares the comms team and the PR and legal team. They're terrified of. But guess what? People are going to find out anyway.
Exactly.
So,
And then you're going to have broken that trust. So why not
yeah,
just be transparent? And that's it's kind of like I think you have to frame things in that way.
yeah,
Um, and that is, it's something that I would always stand behind as challenging as it is. Something that was hard, I think, in the beginning is you want to please everyone at certain points in your career. You really want to make people happy. And this is not a role where you're going to make everyone happy because people care about different things. They have opinions about different things, and you're going to try to do the right thing and the best thing. And it's cater to the needs of the workforce, cater to the needs of the business. But making every single person 100% happy is not going to happen. And embracing that you don't know how things are going to play out, but you're going to try it and you're going to learn and adapt. I think you have to,
I
because that's
love
just the
that.
fact
I've
of the
never heard
matter.
anything truer. That statement.
Mhm.
I think when I post this on LinkedIn, people are gonna be like, "We get it. We agree." All of the HR leaders are gonna high five you on LinkedIn for that
Mhm.
one as well, and that is just the truth as
Mhm.
well, and that's okay. And that's
It's
and then
okay.
that's in every single it isn't just a HR issue, by the way, for everyone listening. Before people
Mhm.
say my role is also tough, we understand that this is across everything. I think you can be
Mhm.
transparent about that with your team. I've had to come into the meetings with my team sometimes, like during the pandemic, and say, I have no idea what we're going to do.
Mhm.
They're like, hey, you're the
Yeah.
CEO. You're supposed to know how to get us out of this pandemic when we've lost 90% of our revenue. I'm like, I don't know, but we're going to figure it out today
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yes.
oh, okay, okay. And I didn't need to get their buy-in. They're already bought in because they're like, okay, Chris believes in us to help us get through this. And they
Mhm.
went above and beyond to deliver, to be able to do that because there was a sense of sense of we than I coming into the
Yeah.
room. I believe we should do this. What should we do? Very
Exactly.
different.
Yeah.
Um,
Very different when they're involved in the solution
a hundred
and
percent.
not just
Yeah,
informed of the
yeah,
progress.
yeah. People are like, how do you get buy-in? Well, they're in. They're already in from the beginning.
Mhm.
That's it's their ideas already. Um, I want to ask you this question. What's some positive feedback that you personally received that still surprises you?
It's the level of business acumen that I have that is, it's one of those kind of like if I could change one thing about HR, it's still kind of that stigma of HR or a transactional function. We've come such a long way since then.
It's
I'm almost
crazy.
like
Yeah.
really, it's like that needs to just die off now. But because we've earned kind of a reputation as strategic business partners who are, we're collectively responsible for the performance and invested in it. And something I hear a lot is just, oh, you know a lot about the business for an HR leader.
Oh.
Um, or yeah, yeah,
Thanks. Yeah.
and it doesn't happen, inside of the business as much because this is, I'm fortunate enough to work for an organization where HR are perceived as a strategic function
Mm-hmm.
and or one that is truly valued and respected. But often when I am, say, like, interviewing or like meeting people who are joining, coming in, they would have a different perception. It's that bias. And so it's kind of like, they mean it as a compliment, which is, it's not too hard on them.
Sure,
And you're
sure.
like, really? You should expect that of all HR leaders.
Yeah.
And, if there isn't a level of business acumen, then there's probably something wrong.
I did a video one time where I went onto the street to like the financial district, Canary Wharf in the UK, and I just grabbed the microphone and just asked random people in the public, "What does HR do?" And you'd be shocked.
Hire and fire people.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. Like I didn't even publish it. It was that
Oh,
bad.
God.
Literally, and it was like, by the way, these are like, I wasn't interviewing. I was in Canary Wharf, all the financial, like, I was interviewing. I was asking executives. I wasn't asking like, I mean, I'm not executives. I was asking like, people who worked in businesses. It wasn't like I was asking kids,
Mm,
outside schools, or like I was asking business professionals and from some of the world's largest companies, right? And I asked them, what company do you work for? Some of them said that agreed to tell me the name. Some didn't, obviously, but it was like overwhelming. I think I maybe had like two people the entire day that really gave an answer that made sense. That actually was like HR strategic business partner. Da, 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 da. Like,
mm-mm.
but I was like, because we're in like a little bubble here
Yeah.
where I'm speaking to great people like you every day, and I'm obviously having amazing conversations, but I forget sometimes. At the moment I was like, oh wow, outside of my bubble of influence and all of my network, this is the perception still.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the fact that I thought we'd done a lot of work, we still got a lot of work to do. We got way more. Yeah, which is frustrating, but also is an opportunity at the same time. So
It is.
yeah. Last question before I let you go. What are you most grateful for?
I am, and if you're asking me my personal life, I have to say my family, my children. As an HR leader, though, I am great. I'm in a position where the decisions that I make influence people's lives and their livelihood and their families and it's kind of like their careers and how they feel in general. And there's so much kind of responsibility. It's a big weight that comes with that. And it's my honor and my pleasure to be in that position, to be entrusted in this role. And I find that because there's so much weight around them, I am more thoughtful and considerate about every decision that is made, understanding the impact that it's going to have. And so I am grateful to be entrusted to, kind of like be in a role that has such an impact on the business and the people in it in such a meaningful way.
Yeah, I feel like people didn't hear our conversation offline, but I
Mm,
feel like from just getting to know you today that this was, without it sounding cheesy, it was meant to be.
mm.
Given your background, experiences, upbringing, everything, this, your why, your purpose is aligned, and the
Mm-hmm.
role as well. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on. I'm so happy that we have people like you in the role and in their profession. And yeah, I wish you all the best until we next speak.
Thank you, Chris. I really enjoyed being here. And yeah, I hope to connect soon.
Thanks. Hey.